At 04:12 in the morning, long before sunrise touched the Persian Gulf, the ocean looked calm. Too calm. No explosions, no alarms, no warning to the human eye. But beneath the surface, something irreversible had just begun. A few miles off the Iranian coast, an Iranian Navy warship altered course slightly, just enough to align its firing solution. Deep below the waterline, steel doors opened, compressed air surged forward, and a torpedo left the tube. Once that weapon entered the water, there was no recalling it. No second thoughts, no diplomacy. The target was unmistakable. USS Abraham Lincoln, a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, 5,000 sailors. More firepower than most nations' entire air forces. To Iranian commanders watching their tactical display, this looked like a moment of defiance, a chance to prove that even America's floating fortresses weren't untouchable. What they didn't realize was that the US Navy had been watching them for days. And the moment that torpedo hit the water, the countdown to disaster for Iran had already begun. The torpedo itself was nothing exotic on paper. A heavy anti-ship torpedo, derived from older Soviet designs but modernized through years of reverse engineering. Fast, heavy, carrying a warhead capable of ripping open a carrier's hull if it struck in the right place. Its guidance relied on a familiar principle: follow the wake. Every massive ship leaves a turbulent trail behind it. This torpedo was designed to ride that disturbed water straight into the heart of its target. Quiet, passive, and lethal. From the Iranian perspective, the logic was simple. The carrier was moving steadily, the sea conditions were favorable, and the torpedo's range placed the warship safely outside what they believed was immediate danger. For a brief moment, it probably felt like a masterstroke. But here's the problem with modern naval warfare. The launch is never the beginning of the story. USS Abraham Lincoln wasn't sailing alone that morning. She never does. Surrounding her was an entire carrier strike group. Destroyers, cruisers, submarines, aircraft, satellites, and sensor networks, layered so deeply that surprise attacks had become almost theoretical. Long before the Iranian warship powered up its firing systems, U.S. assets had already taken notice. P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft had logged the ship's movement patterns. Escort destroyers were trailing sonar arrays that could hear through layers of ocean noise. Space-based sensors tracked radar emissions and surface contacts in real time. To the Iranian crew, they were a single ship preparing to fire. To the US Navy, they were a glowing data point in a system designed to eliminate threats before they ever reached critical distance. So when the torpedo launched, there was no panic. There was procedure. Torpedo in the water. At 04:12 and 19 seconds, acoustic sensors aboard a US destroyer picked up the unmistakable signature: high-speed propeller cavitation, rapid acceleration, bearing and depth data resolving almost instantly. The words echoed through the Combat Information Center, but by the time that phrase left the operator's mouth, the computers had already reacted. The Aegis combat system didn't need to guess what the threat was. It identified the weapon type, calculated its speed, predicted its intercept point, and generated multiple counterattack solutions, all in seconds. Time to potential impact: just under 12 minutes. That might sound like a long time. In naval combat, it's barely enough to blink. The Abraham Lincoln didn't maneuver wildly. It didn't turn away. It didn't slow down. Instead, it did something far more effective. Acoustic countermeasures fired from the hull. Specialized decoys that mimic the sound and wake of a carrier's propellers. To the torpedo's guidance system, the ocean suddenly became crowded. Multiple wakes, multiple false targets, multiple paths leading nowhere. At the same time, escort ships accelerated toward the threat axis, placing themselves between the torpedo and the carrier. But deception alone wasn't enough. The Navy doesn't rely on hope. One of the destroyers broke radio silence with a single command: weapons free. From its vertical launch system, an anti-submarine rocket blasted into the sky, arcing briefly before plunging back toward the sea, miles ahead of the incoming torpedo. When it hit the water, the rocket released its payload, a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo, smaller than the Iranian weapon, faster, smarter. Unlike older torpedoes, the Mark 54 doesn't blindly chase noise. Its onboard computer constantly updates its course, filtering out decoys, rejecting false contacts, and adapting its attack profile in real time. The closing speed between the two weapons was brutal. In less than 3 minutes, they converged. The Mark 54 adjusted once, then again, and then, A controlled detonation erupted near the Iranian torpedo's guidance section. No fireball, no cinematic explosion, just shredded control surfaces and a weapon that suddenly lost its purpose. The torpedo slowed, rolled, and sank silently into the darkness. Threat neutralized. But the fight wasn't over. Stopping the torpedo was only half the equation. The launch platform, the Iranian warship, was still operational, and now it knew it had been detected. That realization tends to force bad decisions. Within minutes, the Iranian vessel increased speed, altering course in an attempt to retreat toward coastal protection. That movement sealed its fate. An MH-60R Seahawk helicopter lifted off from the Lincoln's deck almost immediately. Its mission wasn't search, it was confirmation. The helicopter raced toward the contact, deploying sonobuoys in a precise pattern that turned the sea into a three-dimensional listening field. The results were immediate. The Iranian warship was loud, high engine output, rapid maneuvering, no attempt at stealth. The helicopter's sensors locked in, target confirmed. And the data didn't just stay in the aircraft, it streamed back to the entire strike group, updating firing solutions in real time. The Iranian crew now faced a choice: continue running, or prepare for impact. The Seahawk hovered briefly, lining up its attack. Then a Mark 54 torpedo dropped from its pylons and disappeared into the sea. Unlike the earlier intercept, this weapon wasn't chasing another torpedo, it was hunting a ship. The Iranian warship attempted evasive maneuvers, sharp turns, speed changes, even countermeasures. None of it mattered. The Mark 54 reacquired the target repeatedly, ignoring distractions, refining its path. At 04:29, it struck. The explosion hit below the waterline, where ships are weakest. The blast didn't just punch a hole, it compromised internal systems, flooded compartments, and knocked propulsion offline almost instantly. Within minutes, the warship was dead in the water. Crew members rushed topside, signaling surrender. 14 minutes. That's how long the engagement lasted from torpedo launch to total defeat. The US Navy doesn't just neutralize threats, it removes the ability to repeat them. Authorization came quickly. A strike package launched from the Abraham Lincoln FA-18E Super Hornets, armed and ready. Their targets weren't ships, they were infrastructure, coastal radar sites, command and control nodes, weapons storage facilities tied directly to the attack. At high altitude and supersonic speed, the jets released advanced anti-radiation missiles, designed not only to home in on active radar, but to remember where those radars were even after they shut down. Iranian operators powered off systems too late. The missiles found their marks. Radar arrays collapsed. Control buildings disintegrated. The coastal surveillance network went dark. Minutes later, Tomahawk cruise missiles arrived. Flying low, terrain-hugging, and precise, they struck naval support facilities linked to the attacking unit. Concrete bunkers designed to withstand conventional attacks crumbled under pinpoint impacts. In less than half an hour, Iran lost a frontline warship, critical sensor infrastructure, key naval facility, and any illusion of tactical success. From a purely financial standpoint, the exchange was lopsided. Iran expended 1 torpedo and 1 ship. The US used a handful of precision weapons, but the real cost wasn't measured in dollars. It was strategic. Iran's goal had been to project strength, to show that American carriers could be challenged in waters Iran considers its backyard. Instead, it demonstrated the opposite. That modern naval warfare isn't about bravery or symbolism. It's about information dominance, seeing first, deciding faster, and striking with overwhelming precision. By sunrise, the Strait of Hormuz was calm again. The Abraham Lincoln continued its patrol. Aircraft launched for routine training. Sailors ate breakfast like any other day. The Iranian crew was rescued, treated according to international law, and transferred for diplomatic handling. State media would later claim success. Navigation logs told a different story. The carrier never altered course, never slowed down, never left the area. Because to the US Navy, this wasn't a crisis. It was simply another reminder of an unchanging reality. If you fire on an American carrier, you don't start a war. You end your own capability to fight one. If you enjoyed this deep dive into modern naval power, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Thanks for watching. And until next time, stay sharp.